Morning, Boker Tov, to our weekly Sunday Shiur Torah lesson, where we relax, we study some Torah together. Thank you for the opportunity. And we begin with two mitzvahs, with a mitzvah of tzedakah, putting something into the tzedakah pushka. Right here we have our beloved tzedakah pushka. Let's take out a couple of coins from the pocket over here and put it into the pushka. Here we go. Achad, Shayim, Shalosh, Lamalo. So, Boker Tov, starting with a mitzvah, and let us also begin with a bracha on the delicious coffee that we have over here. Hopefully, you have a delicious coffee as well. Answer Amen. If you do not, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Shehakol Nihiya Bidvaro. So, now the title of the class is A National Day of Hate. There is always the discussion, the thought. I'm sure many of you, my friends over here and listeners, I got a lot of, messages on Friday, many messages, people worried, concerned, anxiety, afraid. So, there's always the balance of when do you allow for people who are hateful, sadly, tragically, when do you give them the attention, and as a result, you are to some extent allowing them to achieve their purpose, or when do you totally ignore? I mean, it's like, and I wouldn't compare it to your child, God forbid, because these people are unfortunately allowing themselves to be totally evil. When you have your child, again, I differentiate between the two, but just the concept over here is, when do you allow your child's tantrum to elicit from you a response, or when do you totally ignore? And that's a balance that you need to decide. And the same thing in this case, when you have a small group, or today with social media, one individual could just make a statement and whips up sort of a frenzy and a sort of palpable fear amongst the masses. When do you ignore? And so, before Shabbat, I didn't really send out any public messages, only, one message to more the community that comes to synagogue on Shabbat, to just assure them that we're doing what needs to be done in terms of police protection or whatever it is, and also explaining that this is really a very small group out in middle of nowhere and so on, so that people shouldn't get too meshuga. I mean, I saw different people responding and saying, "Well, I'm not coming to the synagogue on Shabbat." I mean, that is so the opposite of what the Jewish response is. So I want to talk about that, and if I forget to just discuss it at the end of the class, I want to make myself a little note over here, so that I expand on this idea a little bit more. Expand. Maybe that'll be a reminder, and if I forget, you're welcome to send me a comment and say, "Rabbi, remember the beginning of the class point." But this is a Torah class. I want to first address this with a insight into Torah, beautiful insight in the past Torah portion that we studied, and then I'm going to come back to this situation. So yesterday, my brother-in-law, Rabbi Denberg, in his sermon, shared the following joke as an introduction, sort of, to his Dvar Torah. I'm going to share a different thought based on the on the sermon that I gave where I officiated at the minyan yesterday. We have multiple minyanim at Chabad, thank God, very beautiful community. So, but I will share the joke that he said, and it's a sad joke. I would say it's funny, but I don't like it, and as I'll explain in a moment. So the story is told about a Jew sitting on a bench, reading the paper, minding his own business, relaxing, and a fellow comes over to him and gives him, just out of nowhere, gives him like a whack in the head. And he says, well, this is on behalf of Hamas, who you guys murder mercilessly. What is he supposed to do? And the guy walks away. The guy comes back 5 or 10 minutes later, a short while later. He gives him a kick in the feet and he says, this is on behalf of Hezbollah. And so this continues a couple of times. This is on behalf of the Iranian extremists. So he gets up and the Jew sitting on the bench, he gets up, he comes back, and the next time the guy comes over to whack him, he takes out a wrench from his little bag and he whacks him on the head and he says, and this is from Home Depot, where I just came back from. So, it was said as a joke to describe sort of anti-Semitism and haters out there. I don't like it. The reason why I don't like it, not that I don't like it, I mean, a joke is a joke, and we shouldn't be oversensitive when it comes to jokes, but the reason, what I mean that I don't like it is not that I don't like so much the joke, but unfortunately, this is not who we are. Already when we became a people, God says in Isaac's blessing to Jacob, Isaac says, Hakol ayadayim yedei Esav, hands and violence are the tools of Esau. V'hakol kol Yaakov, our tools, our strength is the voice of prayer, the voice of Torah study. There are times that we must take up arms, no question about that, and we need to defend ourselves, but that's not who we are. It's not our essence. That's not what we glorify ourselves as. That's not where we feel most comfortable. That's not what we occupy ourselves with. We are Hakol Kol Yaakov, the voice of holiness, the voice of kindness, the voice of helping somebody. That's who we are. So this is sort of by way of introduction. And I want to get into something in the Parsha. We said, is this connected to the unicorn? So let me read something from the portion of yesterday's portion. So bear with me over here as we do some Torah study. And there's a lot to share. I have a little bit sort of limited time because some of you might have seen some of the stuff we sent out. Now is our annual match, a gift campaign. We do it once a year, today and tomorrow. The goal is to raise 200,000. Hopefully we could actually exceed that goal, perhaps get to 250,000. If you like these Torah classes and everything else that Chabad does, please participate. I actually have the screen open over here, and I can see what the kindness that you are sharing and giving. So please do so that we could continue, and not only continue, but increase the work of love as opposed to hate that we at Chabad are doing. You come here on a Wednesday and you see the food distribution, and you see on both ends the volunteers that come here from every group, every background, with such positive energy, with such love, and you see the recipients. Participate, please, so that we can continue to be as a middle person between you, the giver, and those that we are there to inspire, to help, and so on. I want to talk about that. So let's go over here to the Torah portion. Okay. So the Torah portion tells us last week, it talks about the building of the tabernacle. When you deal with hate, you could deal with the symptoms and you could deal with the underlying cause, the root cause. And today's Torah thought is going to deal with that as a practical lesson, because as Torah is as if I've repeated so many times, Torah is a guide to life. The word Torah is like related to the word moreh or morah, teacher. Torah is not just an intellectual exercise. It actually has very clear godly wisdom and instructions and a guide to how we should deal with life, day-to-day life situations. So when we want to deal with hate, we need to get to the root cause of it. Well, let's get to that in a moment. Okay, so here, the beginning of this week's Torah portion, last week, just this past Shabbat, I was going ahead and hold on a second. Okay, let's go. Vaydaber Hashem. I like to use the Hebrew of God's words, and then we'll translate. Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe Lema. God spoke to Moses, saying, Daber el bnei Yisrael. Speak to the children of Israel. Veyichuli truma. They should take for me a truma, a contribution. Which, by the way, just as a side note, commentaries point out, very much in apropos of today's matching gift, that it says Veyichuli truma. They should take from me a contribution. Wouldn't it make more sense? Wouldn't it be more correct to say V'yitnu li truma? You should give to me a contribution. And commentaries point out that actually you are taking more than you're giving. When you are charitable, when you're kind, when you help others, you are actually taking more than what you're giving, and that's alluded to by the Torah using the term V'yikhu, and they will take li truma by giving to me a contribution. In this case, building the tabernacle. And then it says, Me'ez kol ish, from every single person whose heart inspires him to generosity. And then the Torah goes on to list the different items that were bought as a contribution that was needed to build the tabernacle, the holy temple in the desert as the Jews were traveling to Israel as a forerunner to the permanent temple that's going to be in Jerusalem. Okay, so he says like this, V'zo satruma, these are the types of contribution ashetikhu mi'itam that you should take from them. So it says like this, Zohav, gold, V'chesev, and silver, Unechoshet, and copper. Okay, then it continues, Utcheles, turquoise, Vargamon, purple, the Selah Shani, and crimson wool, the Sheish, linen, the Izim, and ram's skin dyed red. Okay, Ba'iris Eluma Adamim, and the ram skin dyed red. Then, my dear friends over here, then it says the Oiros Tachoshim and the multicolored tachash skins. Okay, the multicolored tachash skins. Now, what is this multicolored tachash skins? Okay, what's the multi-color? So, if anybody there listening, you can give us a thumbs up if you know what the multicolored tachash skins are. Now, if you notice, all these things that the Torah lists in the Hebrew has a translation. Gold, silver, copper, the different wools, but the tachash skin, what's tachash? No translation. What's tachash? Why doesn't it have a translation? So let's go to Rashi. Okay, we're scholars over here. So let me read before you over here Rashi. At least he has, I believe, here the translation of Rashi. This is not the usual Chumash, the usual Bible that I use. Let's go to number 5 over here. And does he have the Rashi here? I don't see him in this Chumash having a Rashi. Let me give a quick look around and see if there's another Chumash over here. Well, not within distance. So I'm going to have to go ahead and paraphrase Rashi from my memory. And this is the way I will paraphrase from my memory. Sorry to using my hand. I just want to do a little like over here because somebody guessed that it's the unicorns. So, okay, whatever. I don't want to get distracted. Okay, so The title of the class is Unicorn, so it's not such a bad guess. But let's talk about this for a second. So Rashi says the following, and this gives us a little bit of insight into why the Tachash has no translation. The Tachash says Rashi the following. Rashi says that the Tachash only existed for one purpose and at one period in history, and that is during the building of the tabernacle. Hashem miraculously provided it for the Jewish people, or at least it existed, and then it went what we would call maybe extinct. It existed only for that period of time, which explains why it doesn't have any other language translation, because it didn't exist. If something doesn't exist, then you don't have a word for it. Yeah, like I said yesterday, there's certain words in Yiddish that don't have a translation. How do you translate cholent? Cholent. Now, someone does a stew. If you tell somebody I had stew on Shabbos, it's not the same thing as saying I had a cholent on Shabbos. It's just not the same. Cholent is cholent. He tells them I have kishke. There's certain things that you just don't translate. They're cultural for a given culture. Now, the Tachash doesn't have another word because it only existed when we were building the tabernacle in the desert. That's what Rashi says. Lefisha haisa was only temporary. It was only something that existed only at that time. And Rashi's taking it from the Gemara, from the Medrash, I believe. Now, Rashi doesn't explain exactly what this Tachash is. What is it? Is it a fish? Is it an animal? Is it a bird? Someone told me that perhaps it's a peacock because it says that it was multicolored. But it can't be a peacock because peacock still exists today. So Rashi, of course, doesn't understand it as being a peacock. So what is this Tachash? Says the Rashi continues, and then we'll look into the Medrash in a moment, okay? Rashi brings the Targum Onkelos. The Onkelos is the most famous and prominent Aramaic translation of the Torah. It was composed by Onkelos Hager, who was of Roman nobility. I think he was a nephew of one of the Roman Caesars, and he converted to Judaism, and he became one of the great scholars. He wrote the Targum Onkelos. He wrote the Targum Onkelos al pi ruach hakodesh, which means divinely inspired. So therefore, it is viewed as something holy and sacred. His Targum as well. So Rashi goes on to say that it had many different colors, and that's why the Targum translates it as sas goina. Sas goina is an Aramaic word, and it's composed of two words: sos, which means joyful. It's proud of, like the word ashabara, sason v'simcha, joyous. Right, what we say under the chuppah, and goina, which means colors. Sos goina means it is joyous, it is happy with its colors, it prides itself with its colors. So the Targum translates the Tachash as we're trying to decipher, we're trying to figure out what is this Tachash. Says Rashi from the Targum, sos goina, it's happy, it's proud of its colors. Okay, a little bit more specific. I take here a Yalkut Mamloes. It's in Hebrew. Much of it has been translated into English as well, called the Torah Anthology. It's not a complete translation, but much of it has been translated. And I go over here to the verse. Hold on a second. And over here he says, okay, Orot Tchashim. And he brings over here from the Medrash as well, and I think also from the Talmud, L'chaim. And he tells us the following. Hainu, Or shel chaya tahira shoyse b'midbar. This is the skin of a pure animal that was in the desert. Ushma Tachash. Its name is Tachash. V'hoyala keren achas b'mitzcha. It had one horn. I guess kind of a little bit like a rhino, right? I think a rhino has one horn, correct? And it had 6 different colors. One more beautiful than the other, and its appearance was something that drew the heart. So this is, here you have the Medrash, and this is where some have concluded that this refers to what is in folklore known as the unicorn. As we say in Yiddish, oder yeah, oder nein. Maybe yes, maybe no. The fact that it had one horn, according to this opinion in the Medrash, there are other opinions of what the Tachash was. But as I said to you before, we're going to follow Rashi over here. Rashi says that it was multicolored. Rashi doesn't mention the fact that it had one horn. Rashi just says it was multicolored, and it was so proud of its colors. Let's analyze this for a moment. There's a lot we could talk about, but we have limited time and a lot of work today. You may ask yourself a question. What kind of a holy trait is this to have a species used in the building of God's temple that was proud of its colors? Seemingly, that's a little bit sort of a boastful trait. That's a little bit of a unholy trait, seemingly. And why was it only there for that limited, just that period of time? All the other objects, all the other items that was used for the holy temple, for the tabernacle, were objects that existed before and after. What's the message over here? So I want to first share something that I heard from Rabbi Shais Taub, that he was repeating a talk of the Rebbe, and a little bit of my own thoughts, and then how it relates to this National Day of Hate and the lessons that can be learned. So there's a saying from our sages that says the following: "Le'ivra zohav elo lemikdash." The only reason why God created gold is so that it could be used, precious, beautiful metal, is so that it could be used for the holy temple. That's why God created gold. Question would then be asked, if that's why God created gold, why is it that gold is available for everything else and anything else? The answer is that God gives us freedom of choice whether we should use it and what we should use it for. So he gave it to us as just a general gift, or a general blessing for humanity, but we have to know and make the choice to use it for the building of the temple. That is its real purpose of creation. Now, this also has a sort of metaphoric application and meaning. Gold sort of course, represents something beautiful, something of quality. It also extends itself to whatever God has blessed us with, whether it's our material possessions, whether it's our talents, our wisdom, our kindness, our whatever talents and abilities, skills we might have. The gold, in other words, its positivity, that which could be used productively, is its purpose is for the building of the Bet HaMikdash, for holiness, for God's home, to fulfill our purpose of why God put us into this world, to make this entire earth a home where God feels comfortable by doing mitzvahs, by reaching out to others, by being kind, by being holy, etc., etc. So what that means is the more we use let me step back. So on a deeper level, the reason why, in other words, what is the key to happiness? We all want to know, what's the key to happiness? And what are you allowed to be proud of? What are you allowed to be sort of boastful of? The question was, why is the tachash a holy trait by being boastful? Saskoin, it's happy and it's proud to show its colors. Isn't that a form of arrogance, of lack of humility? And the answer is a very deep answer. The answer is that they go hand in hand because the sasgoina, because the tachash, its entire use, not only potentially, but actually was only for holiness, for the building of the tabernacle. So therefore, not only is it allowed to be happy and boastful, it is totally justified because it's not its own egotistical boastfulness. And the evidence to that is that it wasn't used for anything else other than for God and for holiness. Let me try to make the idea a little clearer, let me try to explain it a little better. When you are given, each one of us has been given multicolors, many talents. We've been given, again, as I said, talents, possessions, gifts, blessings. The more we use it for its intended, true, proper, kind, good, holy, godly purpose, the more happy we will be, because when something is used for what it's meant to be used, it fits, it's filling its created purpose. And therefore, as a human being with feelings, you will be a lot more at peace and you will have this satisfaction that you need. And that happens by overcoming sort of your urges, your ego of just using and utilizing these things just for self-aggrandizement or selfish or self, what's the word I'm looking for? Self-fulfillment. The more you use it, the more you put your own sort of desires, animalistic drives aside, and you use it for its intended purpose, which is what the purpose of creation is, the happier you will be. The more fulfilled you will feel. They go hand in hand. You'll feel fulfilled to be happy. Happy, you'll be fulfilled. So the Sas Goina is truly the happiest creation because it was only used for holiness, which means that in your life, in your own life, in my life, in all our lives, we have to first define what is my gold. What are my different colors, my different positive, beautiful colors? And try it. The more you will use it, or the less you will use it just for selfish needs, the more you will use it for its purpose, the happier you have a right to be, and the happier you will be. And here we get to the situation of the day of hate. When we talk about different colors and recognizing and working on ourselves to reduce our own drives, negative drives, or our own egotistical satisfaction and so on. But more and more we think about, as to be said in other words, not what I want or need, but what I'm needed for and what someone else needs me for. And that I have a purpose. The more you put your colors in that direction, the more you focus your different colors, the more beautiful you will be, because something colorful is so much more beautiful than just one color. But then you also can appreciate and not only tolerate, but appreciate and encourage other people, because together we all make a beautiful, we complement each other, we make a beautiful, colorful sort of tapestry, fulfilling our creation as a whole. In other words, where does hate come from? A National Day of Hate. Think about it. It's like so sad that a human being defines that as their purpose. Why does someone hate? I would say it begins, we get to the root of it, often is because they are confused themselves to appreciate the colors, the beautiful colors that God gave them. They are confused about it. They don't they don't define it and direct it where it is supposed to be because they're lost and not being taught properly, etc., etc. I was visiting somebody this last week, a teenager, and a teenager tells me that she's basically skipping school. In this case, she wants to go back to a private Jewish school. She says because she's afraid to go to public school. So you're afraid to go to public school? Why are you afraid to go to public school? Just because there's constant lockdowns, kids threatening to be violent in school, to shoot up the school, God forbid. So what's the solution? What's the root cause of that? We must get to the bottom of it. The answer is not another policeman, as much as I have the deepest respect for law enforcement. That's how I grew up. You respect law enforcement. But that's not the cause. Yeah, you might need to do that, but that's not the cause. The cause is we are raising a generation of kids. The message that we have out there is that there is no focus and sort of inculcating within our kids the beautiful colors, the beautiful absolute colors, and that could only be if you believe in God and you teach them about God and the purpose of the creation, and that they individually count. So, Sas Goina, the more you are genuinely, properly happy with your colors, the more you can and will not only tolerate, but welcome and encourage somebody else. Because the same thing that makes your colors valuable, the more you direct it for holiness, because you realize that you have a purpose, the more you will also appreciate someone else's colors. So how could you be hateful to somebody else? I mean, unless they're threatening you. I'm not talking about somebody who's coming to threat you, wants to harm you. But how can you not value somebody else? How can you not encourage someone else to utilize their colors, their gold, their talents? That's the way you have to look at another human being. Regardless of background, regardless of whether they think like you or not. They have their purpose. That's part of the lesson, this beautiful lesson of Sas Goina. The more we utilize our gifts for its purpose, the happier we will be, the more we will tolerate others as well. There's more that can be discussed over here, but we'll suffice with this. I want to again conclude. I want to ask you again that at Chabad, we're going back into the appeal for the matching gift for the next 2 days. At Chabad, I would say that if you walk into any other sort of synagogue, while everybody's wonderful, you will usually see primarily people who are more or less of that upbringing. If you go into a Hasidic, sort of Hungarian synagogue, you'll see mostly Hungarian style Jews. You go into a Sephardic synagogue, you'll see Sephardic Jews, Ashkenazic Jews. You go into different synagogues, you will see usually Jews who have grown up with that sort of a flavor of Jewish practice. If you go into a Chabad synagogue, you will see Jews of all backgrounds, religious, less religious, more observant, less observant, older, younger, Sephardic, Ashkenazic, Hasidim. You'll see all this was as a result of the Rebbe's love for every and appreciation of every Jew. You will find Jews of all flavors in a typical Chabad house. We are there to help all that turn to us. All that turn to us. So I would even say that this past week, the city of Coral Springs called me. They reached out to me, And they said, we would like to explore. Decision hasn't been made yet, but we'd like to explore to partner with you in your food distribution, because we have been the longest consistent organization here in Coral Springs. It's actually in March. It's going to be 3 years that we are distributing food to thousands, literally. So the city says we want to explore. The city has a certain protocol of how they make decisions and how they do things, and they want to partner with us. So I encourage you to please click on the link that I shared over here in the class. This is a once a year matching gift. Every dollar you give goes double the distance. Please participate in this year's matching gift campaign. Thank you so very much for listening. I welcome feedback. Go ahead and share with me your thoughts. Everybody have a fantastic, wonderful week.